Welcome back to another out-of-this-world story from Hidden Truth. Today's story is about wife goes on a company's trip and shares a bed with a man. The betrayal destroyed her and marriage. Okay, let's go to the story and see how the hidden truth was exposed. After 5 years, he thought he was finally and properly back on his feet. 5 years ago, his ex-wife blindsided him by taking a lover for the weekend, and in the ensuing divorce, he was left impoverished and without means of income. Still loving the woman, but not wanting to be confronted with her and her friends in the future, he left his country and just wanted to move somewhere where nobody knew who he was. He did so as a second engineer at a container ship. He didn't care that he had more knowledge of the ship and its twin engines than his supervisor. He had found a job, and with that, the ability to disappear without leaving a trace for his ex to follow. He was able to make this comeback because one of the first container ships he sailed on had an engine failure in the middle of the ocean. The shipping company had promised a generous award to the engineer who could solve the problem. After 12 hours of frantic searching, he found out why the engine malfunctioned and solved the problem before they needed assistance from an ocean-going tug. That would have been a very expensive affair. The award he received was enough to start all over again. The company, though, had other thoughts about him leaving. They offered him a contract as chief engineer for 2 years on one of their flagships. He took it. He was paid very well, and he had no expenses to speak of, so almost all of his money went into his offshore bank account. After fulfilling that contract, he decided to make his hobby his profession. He fought his way up by designing bespoke ships for people who like to sail in extremely heavy weather conditions, or ships with a very specific purpose in mind. He was rather successful and soon had a reputation as an amiable man, a good listener, and very good at interpreting his clients' wishes. Other than that, he just wanted to be left alone, by both his ex-wife and his family full of prejudices. Just when he started to let his guard down, he had to run again. Update. He was enjoying a proper hamburger with all the trimmings, and while he took a sip of his brew when he heard the voice from hell. "William Alexander Moore, I finally found you. You and I need to have a serious conversation." His ex-wife Sarah, standing before him, said it out loud for the whole restaurant to hear. When she entered, Sarah Anderson was a little dazed. She hardly recognized the lone man sitting at a table eating a hamburger with fork and knife. It took her more than a few moments before that realization hit her that it was her ex-husband. She noticed him because she thought it funny that the man ate a hamburger with a knife and fork. She took a good look at his face and the recognition shocked her. Had he changed? His body, lean and wiry. He was sitting straight in his chair instead of slumping. The face changed the most. She barely recognized it. His dark brown eyes were sunken into his skull. An angry scar ran from the side of his broken nose to his jaw, and his skin looked like a tanned hide. His calloused hands were covered with the little burns and scars like a man doing heavy manual labor. Will looked up from his plate, his face contorted with hate. With his voice filled with venom, he said, "Damn it, you just ruined my appetite. And no, we're divorced. I don't need and I don't want to talk to you ever again. So please do something useful, like electrocuting yourself. I'm done with you." He wanted to stand up and leave when he felt a hand on his shoulder pushing him back down, and a rough voice admonished Will, "The lady wants to talk to you. You'd better sit and listen to what she has to say." Will turned around and looked into the pockmarked face of a bodyguard of sorts. He replied, still with the same venom in his voice, "I want the lady to eat a bowl of rat poison, but we can't always get what we want, can we? Now, if you want to keep the use of that hand, I suggest you let go of me." Sarah, expecting a certain amount of animosity, was taken aback by the raw animosity her ex-husband radiated, and saw William trying to stand up while her driver was still holding him down. She looked around to see whether there were many people watching, when suddenly she heard a scream and a thud. She whipped her head around and saw her driver crumble to the floor holding his hand. From the angle of his wrist, it was obvious that he wouldn't drive her for a while. Will was already halfway through to the register to pay for his now-forgotten meal when he heard Sarah call. "Now I know you're back. I will find you again, and we will have that conversation. Shady, eat shit and die." And he walked away. Hearing the nickname he gave her so long ago in one sentence with a death wish had Sarah Anderson stunned again. She indeed did him a terrible injustice and tore his soul to shreds. When she came to her senses, he was nowhere to be found again. 5 years ago, William had a good-running transport company that filled the niche between the big movers and the bicycle couriers. William's Transport, as it was unimaginatively called, provided extra services such as on-site packaging. Before they married, Will graduated Chimla as a marine engineer, but there was that banking crisis going on. No work for him to be found for him in his niche. That's why he started his company. A few years later, he had 50 men and women in his employ and a small fleet of trucks and vans. They were both 26 when William announced that the house was paid for, and now they could start to look to their future and become parents. Update 1. Sarah's friends had been pushing her for months. Half a year ago, she announced that in the near future, she and Will wanted to start a family. And ever since they were working on her to have at least one last splurge before she became a mum. And now that moment came, she had given in. That faithless Friday morning, she came out of the bedroom with a small suitcase. William looked surprised and asked jokingly, "Are you going to leave me?" Sarah replied, blushing, "Only for the weekend." "I'm confused. Only for the weekend? Why didn't you tell me before? What are you planning to do for Pete's sake that you're confronting me with it at the last moment? Because otherwise you would try to talk me out of it. I want one wild weekend with my friends before we start a family. We booked 3 rooms for the 6 of us in a hotel." "I'm still confused. Am I included?" Sarah looked at the floor, not able to look her husband in the eyes when she said, "No, my friends arranged company for the weekend. It's the last time I can go wild before I have to be in mommy mode." William was absolutely stunned into silence. Sarah misinterpreted this completely and said hopefully, "You don't mind it, do you?" "No. The girls arranged a friend to accompany me the whole weekend. It's only one weekend. I'll be back Sunday afternoon, and you can claim me as yours again, and we will start making babies." William snapped back into reality. "I do mind. I mind it so much that if you go on with this plan, we stop being married shortly after." Sarah was a little shocked at the vehement reaction from William and asked, "Surely you love me enough to let me have one binge this weekend? If there are other men involved in lovual activities, it seems that you don't love me enough. When we married, we vowed to forsake all others and stay faithful until death us part. Now that we have agreed to begin a new phase in our lives, I stress our lives. You want to take a weekend vacation from that vow? I can't condone that. What about the next time something life-changing happens? Will you go on a vacation for a week or a month? Really? This plan alone is enough to bring this marriage to the brink of destruction. If you go through with this unholy plan, I will divorce you. Do you understand that?" Sarah took a deep breath and thought to herself, "Shit, he doesn't buy it." After a few moments, a new thought arose. Time to put on the pressure. Her girlfriends and her weekend lover coached her in this part of the conversation, should the occasion arise. "Oh no, you won't. If you do that, I will take everything you have and more. The house, your company, and I'll bleed you dead on alimony. My friends know a very good lawyer and already promised that if you are going to be difficult about it, he will help me protect myself during a divorce." This is blackmail of the worst kind. You don't have any consideration for my feelings. You are just trying to bully me in submission. I promise you this. When you come back Sunday afternoon and indeed ducked that man, our marriage is over, whatever the cost to me. I'd rather sleep in a cardboard box than to be married to a bullying, blackmailing, cheating, conniving bitch. Now I'm going to work. When you are not home tonight, I take it that you are destroying our marriage." With those words, William left for work. Sunday afternoon, Sarah stumbled out of her friend's car. Carefully, she made her way to the front door, while her friend cowardly pulled off in a hurry. Sarah, still quite under influence of alcohol and some other substances, had reported extensively on Friday morning's confrontation, and none of her so-called friends wanted to be around when Sarah confronted William with the results of the weekend. Their mission was accomplished, and Sarah was on her own this afternoon. She felt painfully sore, was hungover, and her back door was still bleeding from the unlubricated treatment her weekend lover gave it. It wasn't the exciting weekend she had anticipated by far. There was a lot of booze, designer drugs, some dancing, and much horizontal gymnastics involved. But the love was only one way. She felt violated. In the whole weekend, she had one less than mediocre orgasm, and she brought it on herself while the man was dot her from behind. It was also the moment that after she got off, he suddenly pulled out and rammed his dot in her back channel. She screamed in pain, and the only thing he said was, "Oh my, you do like that, don't you?" and kept on ploughing. She opened the door and called out. No answer. She called again. "Will, honey, I'm home and totally yours from now on." The only answer was some stumbling in the bedroom. William was there? Packing? "What on earth do you think you are doing?" she shouted. Then she had a good look at him. He was white as a sheet, blue bags under his dull, expressionless eyes. "Leaving. You went on with your plan. I made you a promise, and I plan to keep to it. Having seen you walking to the door, I reckon you have, more than once, been ducked by your intended lover, even after I told you very clearly what the consequences would be if you went through with your plan. I hope it was worth it. I found another place to live. I don't want to spend another night under one roof with a cheating whore of a wife. Now if you excuse me." Sarah was speechless. She tried to say something, but the words refused to come out of her mouth. William used that moment to slip past his soon-to-be ex-wife and walked out of the door. Sarah let herself fall on the couch and sat still until dark. She was confused and sad and thought, he left. He actually left, against all odds, against everyone's expectations. He actually left me. They were so convinced that threats to strip him financially would hold him back from a divorce, and that would give me a chance to make it up to him and reconcile. Now, the pain, together with frustration over an unsatisfactory weekend, the hangover, and the fear that her marriage actually was exploding, came to full fruition. Sarah became angry. Her emotions, combined with the frustration over an unsatisfactory weekend, boiled over, and all her anger focused on William. He begrudged me one weekend to experience my youth for the last time. Well, if he isn't back by tomorrow and apologize, I'll let him have it. The next morning, after a bad night, several times interrupted by a bout of vomiting, Sarah woke up late for work. It got her angry all over again. She still felt sick, and normally William was always up early and woke her with coffee, some breakfast, and if needed, some Tylenol. She never was a morning person and abhorred hurrying in the morning. She grabbed her phone to give him a piece of her mind. "What do you want, Sarah? I don't think we have much to say to each other anymore. I have an appointment with a lawyer this morning, and I would suggest you find one yourself too, but you already have one. Was he the one that had you this weekend?" Sarah almost spit in her phone, shouting, "I'm going to rip you if you try to divorce me. I'll take you for everything you have, just because you don't want me to have one weekend of fun." William sighed. "Really, Sarah, I don't care. Whatever you do, I've already hit rock bottom. The betrayal and disrespect you showed me tore my soul from me and shredded it. Did you really think that you could duck around without consequences for your marriage? Your disrespect for me is staggering, and I just can't live with that. You carved my heart out and ripped it to pieces. So do your worst. When the divorce is final, I'll disappear from your life." And disconnected, leaving Sarah badly frustrated behind. That afternoon, Sarah was talking to her friends again. One said, giggling, "So you soon will be free to party again, girl. Welcome back. That idiot will never know what hit him. He wasn't worthy of you, baby. You must have a lawyer or a doctor, not some parcel delivery boy." Sarah went to contact her weekend lover. He was very willing to handle the divorce for her and told her not to worry about anything. He would take her nearly ex-husband to the grindstone, and there wouldn't be anything left of him after he was done. Sometime later, William sat at the table in the kitchen from his parents and looked at the faces of his parents and brother and sister. "Something is going on. Out with it. What is the matter?" His father replied, "As if you don't know. We are very disappointed in you. We didn't raise you like that." "Like what? The divorce? I don't know what you are talking about." "It's not the divorce. It's why she divorces you. Poor girl. We had no inkling that you abused her for such a long time and that abortion you forced her to take. But we're here together to tell you that because of that, you are, for the time being, no longer welcome in this house. We are too ashamed that you are our son." William sat back, looking incredulously at his family, and stammered, "What? But I never have." Any further words were impossible. His father cut him off, saying, "We heard from her friends how badly you treated Sarah. Don't deny it. You don't have a place in this house anymore." Completely destroyed, William left the house he grew up in, realizing that somebody had initiated a smear campaign to destroy his character and was succeeding very well. Another few weeks later, a cold, grey morning, just like the mood he was in, found William waiting for the judge handling the divorce. His lawyer already warned him that she had a very dim view on men in general, and specifically men who were accused of abuse, whether proved or otherwise. She always sided with the women. He also explained that it was the way his opponent did his business. Low and dirty. To the left sat Sarah and her entourage, and he felt Sarah looking at him. By now, he lost his parents and brother and sister, and all his friends to the character assassination Sudri Sarah and her friends had initiated. William's love for Sarah had turned into a burning hatred. When the judge started to list his misdemeanors, William faded out. When his lawyer told him about the methods his colleague used to ruin his opponent, William lost all hope of an honest divide of goods. He had a good talk with his secretary and logistics planner about what was to expect. On a whim, he emptied his safe. Everything from the safe went into his desk, and he changed the combination from the safe. Everything personal on his computer was transferred to a flash drive, and here he also changed the password into something Sarah wouldn't think of easily. He would honor what the judge doled him out, but some sabotage would be in order. Childish, maybe? His life as it was had exploded in his face. He already had arranged his seaman's book and found a job as second ship's engineer aboard a container ship sailing under the Marshall Islands flag. When this ordeal in court was over, he was going to use his one-way ticket to South Louisiana and step on board. Suddenly, his lawyer nudged him. "Huh, what?" William said. The judge repeated, "Do you have something to add?" "Does it matter? Just get on with it." Sarah looked up sharply when she heard the voice of William. It had a hard edge, was flat, dull, and devoid of whatever emotion at all. She briefly wondered if they had overdone it. When the judge finished, the only thing William had left were his savings from before they were married. He had to pay maintenance, but because Sarah had a job herself that paid not much less than William earned. It wasn't as much as her lawyer had wanted, but the judge had to follow the rules in this. William walked out of the room, followed by his lawyer. He wrote a check for the total amount of alimony and told the man to hand it over to Sarah and to make sure that there were witnesses. Update 2. Sarah, still at the restaurant, remembered that day, actually that whole disastrous week, painfully well. It started Monday morning early, and she felt sick, nauseous. She was bothered by it for quite a while, and at last she had made an appointment with a doctor for later that afternoon. When she walked out of the room, the judge called her back. Next to the judge was William's lawyer. She walked back. The lawyer handed her the check, saying, "This is the total amount of alimony my client is due. I have one last message from him, if you are interested." Eager, thinking, hoping. Maybe he changed his mind, Sarah said, "Yes." The lawyer took a breath and said, I quote, "I hope you will never have to go through such a charade yourself. Congratulations on your win. I hope you're happy now. That's all. I wanted to speak to him personally." "That's not possible, as my client has already left and on his way to another life. Anyway, that's what he told me." It shook Sarah out of her comfort zone. She didn't expect William to walk away from everything. Surely he didn't want to abandon his company he worked so hard for, nor his family. She asked the lawyer, "But who is running William's transport now?" The lawyer looked at the judge and back to Sarah, thinking, is she that stupid? She took the man for everything and everyone, and she asks, who is running her company? Suddenly, he had enough. He felt for the man, a burned-out husk, not a shadow of what he was. One didn't build a company worth over $15 million in these times without being a tough character. He spoke, polite but clipped as a man in anger. Mrs. Anderson, you took his company from him in this charade of a divorce, together with all the rest but for his savings. His savings paid for your alimony, and your foul, unsubstantiated rumors had his friends and his family alienated from him. If I was my client, I would jump off a cliff. Now, if you excuse me. The man stomped away, leaving two very disturbed women behind. The afternoon was even more disturbing for Sarah. She sat, spread-eagled, in the doctor's chair, when the doctor had prodded and pinched her before she asked Sarah, how far along is your pregnancy? It was a very good thing that Sarah already was almost horizontally, otherwise she would be. Astonishment showed on her face. She went from red to white, stuttering. What do you mean? I can't be pregnant. The doctor looked at Sarah and replied none too gently. You certainly are. I reckon about 3.5 months, but an echo would have to prove that. On top of that, outwardly seen, you have all the hallmarks of a neglected STD. Tests will prove which one. So tell me, how long ago did you have unprotected intercourse and with whom? We need to do a source research. Sarah became flushed from shame. The only source from the STD had to be from her weekend warrior. But who impregnated her? If it was Williams, the child would grow up without a father, and in time she would have to explain why. She was thinking furiously. An abortion was out of the question. It was already too late for that, and besides, she always wanted children, even more so when she met William, but that ship had sailed when he torpedoed their marriage. Weekend warrior? No way. She didn't like him at all, and his treatment of her even less. After all, he was the one who gave her the reason as to why she had to visit a doctor. Later that week, Sarah entered the office of William's transport. She was received politely but extremely coolly by William's former secretary. She was shown her office, and when she had installed herself, the young woman came to her desk again. She handed Sarah an envelope saying, Mrs. Anderson, here is my resignation. I am aware that I have a 1-month notice period, but I have enough private days to cover that. I'll clear my desk this afternoon. Sarah was shocked and asked, why? Don't you want to stay on? I won't change how the company is run. The answer was brutally blunt. No, ma'am, I definitely won't. The rest of the office team and myself are acutely aware of what you did to Mr. Moore. I don't want to have anything to do with you. The young woman walked out again, leaving Sarah shocked and speechless behind. Sarah looked around. On her desk was a shoebox. She opened it, and in it were a few keys and the documents that stated the ownership. She only had to find a way to transfer them to her name. She tried the keys on the desk. One fitted. She left it there. Again, she looked around. From earlier visits, she remembered the knickknacks and pictures William sported in this office. Now it was bare. She opened the top drawer from the desk, and there was William's wedding ring and his favourite picture of both of them. He had titled it, Looking at the Future. With a thick felt-tip pen, he had crossed the text. Sarah felt hurt, and she couldn't tell why. He was the one who divorced her over a weekend of fun, didn't he? That he came out on bottom was his fault. While she was wool-gathering, a young man entered. She asked, Who might you be? The man replied, I'm John, and I have to hand in my resignation. With that, he walked out of the door. Sarah didn't like this trend at all, and she dreaded the rest of the day. Indeed, at the end of the day, 4 out of 5 people of the office staff resigned. She couldn't get into the safe, and she had the wrong password for the computer. To make things worse, the doctor phoned and told her that she suffered from chlamydia and gonorrhea and had to be treated. Because of her pregnancy, it would not be simply one pill to take care of it. Back to the present. Still in the restaurant. When her driver was taken to a hospital, she started to look for a private investigator. Now she knew that her ex-husband was back in the country again. One ought to be able to find him. She was very well off now. After 80% of the office staff had handed in their resignation, she had to fight hard to keep the company running, at the same time staving off aggressive buyers and other charlatans who saw her as easy prey. When the company was running smoothly again, she sold it for almost $5 million, more than its value, when she had the company dropped in her lap. A few months later, after the divorce and the disappearance of William, she became aware of the role her friends had played. Her ex-mother-in-law called her to ask if she was on the mend now that William couldn't abuse her anymore. That conversation was disastrous for both Sarah and William's family when Sarah had to confess that William never even laid a finger on her, and that was all a fabrication of her friends to make it possible for her to rape him in the divorce. Furiously, she broke all contact with her friends. She tried to apologize to her former in-laws, without much success. After all, on that premise they ousted their son from their lives, and vice versa. She was shown the door and told her that she could come back to apologize when she brought their son back to them. She, herself, wanted William to suffer a bit and crawl back to her. She wanted him at a disadvantage during the divorce proceedings. She didn't want him to be destroyed, even if that had been to her considerable financial advantage. She used the fact that her lover had given her an STD to bully the weekend warrior into a DNA paternity test. She sighed with relief that her daughter was not his. Wilhelmina, or Minnie, was very precious to her. Wilhelmina after her father. After a while, she arrived in calmer waters. She was in love and had married again. Although she had learned from her divorce that she had to protect herself. Her husband had to sign a prenup, and after some sputtering he did. 2 years after the confrontation in the restaurant, William was busy fencing his swimming pool and the pond under the disapproving gaze of the tabby cat that came with the house when he acquired it. Someone had mentioned that he had new neighbors with a 6-year-old daughter. After what he called, the incident at the restaurant, he seriously started to look for a location where he could expand his designing business with a shipyard where he could build his own designs. He found a decrepit wharf at an estuary on the east coast. Important was that he could afford it without the hot breathing of a bank down his neck. It came with a charming house a few miles inland. Most important was that it was thousands of miles away from his ex-wife and her gang of thugs. Now he was hammering at the stainless steel fence posts who would hold the glass panels into the ground. He had little slack, so he had measured thrice and used a laser level to line every pole up. It was back-breaking work. He was just stretching his back for the umpteenth time when he heard a small, very young voice behind him. "What are you doing?" William looked around and saw an elfin girl looking with big eyes back at him. He answered gently, "I'm making a fence to prevent little girls like you from falling into the pool and drowning." The girl looked at him with the penetrating gaze girls of her age can have, saying, "I'm not little anymore. I'm 6 years, almost 7 years old, and I can read." William smiled. "Okay, you're not a little girl anymore, but can you swim?" "No, I have nobody to teach me. Can you teach me?" "Not now, little fairy. Another time perhaps. Now I need to make the fence. Can you make a swing too?" "I think I can. Why? Would you like to have a swing? Can't you ask your daddy to make one?" "I don't have a daddy, and I don't like my stepfather, so I'm not going to ask." The cat ambled over to the girl and sat next to her. William was immediately smitten by the precocious little girl, and on a whim he asked, "If I make a swing over there, will that help?" He pointed at a spot about 10 yards away. The girl's smile lit up William's world. The girl enthusiastically bobbed her head up and down, answering, "Oh yes! Can you please? I'll come every day." "I think you will have to ask your mother first. And since I'm going to build you a swing, may I know your name? I'm Lex, by the way." "I'm Minnie. Can I call you Uncle Lex?" To make things a little more difficult for investigators, William registered everything here under Lex Moore, and out of habit he now called himself Lex instead of William, Will, or Alex. Now he looked at Minnie hopping back to her house. He noticed that she had to navigate the little creek running through his property, and thought, "I have to bridge that creek too, before it becomes dangerous in winter." At the same time, Sarah sat with her elbows on her kitchen table, holding her head in her hands. Tears of despair and sadness streamed down her cheeks. Before her lay the irrefutable proof that her husband cheated on her with numerous women. She suspected it for a few months. That's why she moved to this place, hoping that different environment would help her marriage over this hump. Finally, she got herself together again, wondering where Minnie was. Just when she finished a call to a family lawyer, one with very good recommendations on the internet, to start the divorce, Minnie walked into the kitchen, looking very happy, and immediately started chattering. Sarah didn't pay much attention and only recognized the word swing. Automatically, she said to her daughter, "That's fine, dear," oblivious to the fact that Uncle Lex was a man alone, living a few hundred yards down the hill across a creek. William, or Lex, had the swing built at the wharf. He poured a concrete base to bolt the set of 2 swings on and assembled it within a week. It was a set, one swing 8 feet high and one almost twice that size. He had a landscaper make a bed of wood chips around it to prevent injuries. From that day, Minnie was almost daily to be found at his place. It cheered Lex up no end. He came out of his shell while she slowly melted the armor he raised around his soul. Sarah's divorce was rapidly becoming a nightmare. Her husband was fighting and stalling all the way despite the proof she had. He fought the prenup, saying that she cheated first. When Sarah heard of the rumors he and his lawyer spread, without the means of refuting them, she had a flashback. Suddenly, standing in front of the mirror to clean her face from the ruined makeup, she almost literally heard William's lawyer again. "I hope you will never have to go through this charade yourself. Congratulations, you win. I hope you're happy now." The world went dark for a moment. My God, this is what happened to William. Even worse, he lost all of his social life too. All because I gave that man carte blanche, and William's lawyer warned William about their modus operandi. That's why he never fought back. He took his loss and just wanted out. That we destroyed his relationship with his family and friends made him act so bitter the last time I saw him. I never had a chance. She resolved not to go that way and called her lawyer to go to war with every piece of dirt he had on her husband. Next, she called her bank to set up a trust fund and started to transfer a big chunk of her investments into it. It took a few weeks before she started wondering who that elusive man was where her daughter was so fond of. Given her own situation, she was reluctant to approach the neighbor directly. She decided to ask around. In the shopper hall, she got her first nugget of information. "You mean Master Lex from the wharf?" the greengrocer exclaimed. "Oh, he is a very reticent person, but good for his employees, and a miracle with children. He is the clown at the annual festivities he organizes since he bought and restarted the wharf." She found out that he was living alone in that other house on the hill. He kept to himself and never talked about his past, and was very well liked. Everybody knew the man as Master Lex. On the website of the wharf, he was not mentioned at all. No picture, no resume, nothing. Sarah had to find an excuse to meet the mysterious man her daughter was so fond of. Sometime later, "Uncle Lex? That's me. What's the matter, Minnie? It's my birthday next week." "Oh, is it now? And how old are you going to be? 17, I think." Minnie giggled. "No, silly, 7. Do you want to come to my party?" "I don't know if your mum will like that idea, dearie. I asked and she didn't mind. She likes to meet you." "You thought of everything, didn't you? Did you think about a present?" Now Minnie looked at her feet. Lex gently prodded. "Come on, is it a big present? Just tell me and let me decide. All children go sailing on the weekends. Mummy can't sail. Can you? I'll talk about it with your mum. If she is not okay with you sailing with me, I'll pay for your sailing lessons. Deal?" Minnie happily shouted, "Yes," nodded vigorously, did a little happy dance and hugged the grumpy man. A week later, Lex knocked on the front door from the house Minnie lived with her mother. Somehow, he never came to ask Minnie's mother's name. He wasn't very interested. He became very fond of the little fairy, but he learned to keep away from people. He had always been a little introverted. His divorce just about destroyed his social self-awareness and the solitude on the big freighter. And container ships enhanced that sentiment no end. Only in business meetings and on the wharf, he opened up a bit. The door opened and Minnie streaked out directly into the arms of Lex. He cuddled and tickled her until he heard a gasp. "Will!" He looked up, straight in the deathly pale face of his ex-wife. William felt a white-hot anger rising from deep down inside him. He forced it down, thinking, "This day is about Minnie. Don't ruin it. She can't help that her mother is what she is." With a glacial undercurrent in his voice, William said, "Good morning, Mrs. Anderson. I hope this is not too inconvenient. If it doesn't suit you, I will take my leave immediately." Sarah was speechless for a moment, but finally stammered, No, you're welcome. But please call me Sarah, and please do come in. I heard from Wilhelmina that you are Uncle Lex. Can I call you Lex? Anything you want. Please be assured that I will keep it civilized. I sincerely hope you do too." With that said, Lex walked through the door with a very happy 7-year-old, leading him to the living room. Sarah took the distraction her daughter provided to compose herself again. When she finally felt a semblance of calm, she hurried after them. Sarah was just in time to see that Lex handed her the box he had with him. She noted it wasn't wrapped in flashy wrapping paper, and it was marginally taped shut at the top. Minnie didn't seem to notice and started to tear at the tape. "Careful now. It's a tiny bit fragile," Lex said. Minnie looked at her mother, while Lex took a step back as if he wanted to distance himself from Sarah, and together they opened the box. Out came a model of a sailing boat. Gently, he explained, "I'll pay for your sailing lessons. I don't think your mama will like it much if I myself give you these lessons. When you have your swimming diploma and your sailing license, I will build this boat for you. I will design it so that you can safely sail it alone. You may help if permitted, and you must find a name for it. You understand that?" Sarah noticed that the model was entirely complete, with sails, rope, pulleys, and even a little anchor and swimming vest. She saw Minnie hug Lex, and tears threatened to flow at the sight alone. Minnie asked him, "Uncle Lex, what are those fishies called that are swimming beneath the bridge over the creek and in the pond you dug?" "These are minnows. They're quick and agile. Why? Can I call the boat like that?" "Of course. It's a beautiful name for it. You want that?" Minnie nodded affirmatively. After that moment, Sarah cleared her throat to get their attention and asked, "Lex, would you like something to drink? And I made an apple pie on request from my daughter." William raised an eyebrow, saying, "Tea, please." Sarah noticed and said lightly, "I had a steep learning curve to overcome when my cook left." And she fled the kitchen. The next few hours went quickly. There were some children from Minnie's class too. Lex entertained them with funny stories and faces. Sarah observed the interaction between her daughter and father and kept to herself. Her heart ached. She realized that her feelings for that man hadn't gone away, but had only been dormant. They were still there, and she was falling for him all over again, but for other reasons entirely than the first time. Lex had the best time in years. All children, but specifically Minnie, eased him out of his shell. His anger forgotten, he felt at ease with the children. To him, it felt way too quick when the first parent came to pick up her daughter. Sarah, though, walked the whole time on eggshells. She noticed the connection between the two, and she desperately needed to tell William, or Lex now, that he was Minnie's father, and more importantly, he must know that she wouldn't deny access to Minnie, despite his feelings toward herself. Her daughter was in a much better place since she met him. "Uncle Lex, would you like to stay and have dinner with us? Mama and I would like that very much." And immediately she started to beg as only little girls could. Big eyes looking up, hands together before her lap. Lex had no intention of staying here without the safety the children provided, but now he was trapped. He couldn't leave without hurting the girls' feelings. He accepted his fate with a shrug. He looked at Sarah, saying, "Really? You and Mama?" Sarah nodded, saying, "I can do civilized too," even though I had to learn that the hard way. The meal was simple but delicious. Small meatballs and green beans in a rich tomato sauce, pasta and ground Parmesan cheese. As dessert, ice cream, of course. At the end of the meal, Minnie went to the living room. Sarah thought frantically, "It's now or maybe never. Come on, girl. Do or die." And she took Lex's hands into hers. She rushed through her words, "I need 2 minutes from you. Please, I beg you for Minnie's sake, don't walk out on me." Lex was surprised. He didn't expect a plea, more something of an ultimatum. He just answered, "Okay, talk." Sarah took a deep, shuddering breath. Dear William, or Lex, everything you will undertake with Minnie is fine by me. Please be assured that I will never deny our daughter contact with her father and her father a relationship with our daughter. Whatever you may think of me, I tried to be as good a mother as I can be. But since you are in Minnie's life, she changed so much for the best. Oh, one last thing. I ask nothing except for your love for her. You have paid way too much already. It all came out in one big rush. She looked at her ex-husband to gauge his reaction, but his face, no, his whole body language went into stealth mode. She couldn't discern anything. When Lex understood the meaning of Sarah's words, he felt as if a sledgehammer had hit him on the back of his head. He literally became dizzy and could only sit still and try to process the enormity of this news. Lots of things fell into their place. The way Minnie was drawn to him when he was hammering at the fence, his inability to send her back. Even then, there was that immediate connection. In his mind were two thoughts spinning and screaming round. I have a daughter. I am a father, gently Sarah said. I know that you hate me and I expect that you don't believe me. I'll pay for the paternity test, whenever and however you want to take it. I stress, I won't demand support. The only thing I hope is that you will love her and be there for her. She needs a father and I can't think of a better one than you. For everything else, I will write you a letter. That's the only other thing. I ask that you read it. Dazed, Lex wanted to get from his chair. He needed fresh air, but Sarah still held his hands. She begs, please Will, promise me that you will read the letter. It is very important that you do. Lex's brains started to function again, and he replied, I have a daughter. You want me to participate in her life and have me do a paternity test, and I must promise to read a letter you are going to write. I have a few questions. Fire away. Why do you want me in Minnie's life? You did very well until now. You still must hate me, so that's a complication for you. When Sarah heard Lex's words, a sob escaped. She hardly could hold it together. Why is it so important that I read this letter? Lex relentlessly went on. And why would I take that test? Looking straight into his eye, Sarah thought, he didn't explode like the last time, and he still talks to me. I'll take that as a win. She carefully answered, I moved over here because I wanted to get away from a very toxic environment. People started pestering me after the rumors. My husband spread, and they took hold. Lex interrupted with a cynical, welcome to my world. Sarah replied honestly, yes, and I truly deserve that remark. But then adults and their children started to pick upon Minnie because of those rumors. On Minnie. Lex looked up, saw the pain in her eyes when Sarah continued. But that's the reason I moved over here. Not why I want you in Minnie's life, and above all, I don't hate you. So that is no complication for me. I hope for Minnie's sake that you can bear to be around me. Lex started to say something, but Sarah held up one hand and squeezed his in the other to stop him, saying, You have every right to hate me, and I have none to hate you. But that comes next. From the moment Minnie met you, she started to change for the better. The time before we moved over here, it was very rough on her. She and my former husband didn't get along with each other. He called her mistake when he was angry. This afternoon, I've seen a deep connection and love flowing between the two of you, even without you knowing that she is your biological daughter, and it's a beautiful sight to behold. She is much more balanced now and opens up. That's all on you. Sarah paused, took a sip of her coffee, thinking he is still listening. Oh God, please help me to win this man into the life of my daughter, and tried to collect her thoughts. She went on, now the hard part. Please hang on. When I realized what was happening to me, I also realized what had been done to you. That moment was as if there was a trapdoor suddenly opening from under my ego, and my ego disappeared in the gap underneath, making place for a conscience. That day I looked in the mirror and almost literally saw a very ugly human being. I made 3 decisions. 1. I told my lawyer to fight fire with fire, only I had provable facts to shoot with. 2. I split my finances, and 3, and most important, I went to see a shrink. Sarah shuddered when she finally delivered her little, but oh so important speech, finishing it with, That's why it's so important to read my letter. And once again, I don't hate you. I was an entitled, arrogant, stupid bitch with the wrong friends, and it took me more than 5 years to realize that as a fact. Lex looked pensive for a while, finally answering, Sounds like an excuse, and you've got that right. No, Will, Sarah cried, suddenly with tears in her eyes. It's not an excuse. I never, ever can make enough excuses for what I have done to you. Look at you. You ought to have a doting woman next to you. Instead, I hurt you so deeply that you don't even consider such a thing as a relationship. You just let no one near you, except Minnie. William jumped up, taking deep gulping. I need air. I need to get home. Where's Minnie? I have to say goodbye to her. Sarah panicked. Did she push too hard? Is he going to abandon Minnie? And cried. You're not going to leave Minnie. Please, don't leave her. You can't do that to her. Lex got over his information overload and almost snarled. No, of course not. Can't do that to a child. I need to think. I'm dazed and confused. I don't trust you. You might have an agenda, and I really didn't like the last agenda you confronted me with. That's not going to happen twice, you know. While Lex hugged Minnie goodbye, Sarah sat distraught at the kitchen table. She thought she had a foot in the door, but never counted on the chain inside. A few hours with this man she used to know so well was enough to fall all over in love again. She was convinced that Lex was the father of her daughter, and they, father and daughter, had a deep connection. It was obvious to her that she had her work cut out for her, only to be called a friend by Lex. He made it very clear that he trusted her as far as could throw her, so that is the first thing she had to work at. But how? This story is no end here. Conclusion will coming soon, so stay calm. Thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed the video. It helps us know we're doing something right.